Republicans and Trump supporters can no longer say that warnings from Democrats that this administration will cost people their lives are fantastical, false, or untrue, because we are seeing it play out right now in Texas, where the death toll is up to 70 people because a tragedy that was preventable was allowed by Donald Trump's incompetence and reckless cuts to our government. And it is confirmed that that is the case, although the Trump administration is trying to argue against it because of a shocking new report, leaked testimony from within the National Weather Service that we are going to get into. But before we do, I want to start with what is happening on the ground, reporting from our friends at MSNBC.
Rescue operations continue at a frantic pace here in the Texas Hill Country by land, air, and water. Helicopters, planes, drones, dogs, dive teams. It is all hands on deck to try and find people who may still be alive. Meanwhile, more heartbreaking updates as the death toll rises. Just here in Kerr County along the Guadalupe River, 59 people have been found dead, including 21 children, and we know 12 people are still missing from Camp Mystic alone, including 11 campers, those young girls, and one counselor. Officials say they do not know how many other people may be missing. People who came to vacation here for the 4th of July, they don't know how many people were along the river. That is why these rescue operations are continuing at a desperate pace as families are desperate for answers. But with every update we get, we learn that we've lost more.
This is a devastating tragedy, and anyone who claims those advocating on behalf of greater investment to prevent climate change, making sure that the National Weather Service has the necessary funding to carry out its operation, claiming that those cries, those calls are political, is so ridiculous to me, in a moment in which Donald Trump and those around him just want to brush off this crisis, move forward, offer up nothing but thoughts and prayers, and call it a day. Those who want to resolve the situation and prevent it from happening again are not acting with political motives right now. The political motives were displayed by those who cut these necessary programs without thinking of the ramifications. And I have been disgusted by the response we have seen from Donald Trump, his stooges, and even Elon Musk. And before we can get into this report, I want to check out what some of those were.
That state and federal resources have just poured into that area. Is there anything more that can be done congressionally, legislatively to help these folks?
In a moment like this, we feel just as helpless as everyone else does. I've talked to my colleagues there in Texas, Chip Roy and August Pfluger, whose families, that's Chip's district. August's daughters were at the camp. We also had Betty Carter of Georgia, had grandchildren there. It touches so many families, and all we know to do at this moment is pray.
Donald Trump was patting himself on the back on Truth Social, writing that he just signed a major disaster declaration for Kerr County, Texas, to ensure that our brave first responders immediately have the resources they need. These families are enduring an unimaginable tragedy, with many lives lost and many still missing. The Trump administration continues to work closely with state and local leaders, with Kristi Noem on the ground yesterday and Greg Abbott working hard to help people of his great state. Our incredible U.S. Coast Guard, together with state first responders, have saved more than 850 lives. God bless the families, and God bless Texas. And when Republicans were trying to cover for Trump and Elon, saying that these cuts weren't the reason we have experienced such a tragedy in Texas, Elon Musk's own AI wrote no. The warning coordination meteorologist position at NWS Austin San Antonio remains vacant as of the latest official NWS document from June 2025, likely due to ongoing NOAA budget cuts. Mike Johnson says there's nothing we can do more than offer thoughts and prayers. Donald Trump is congratulating himself in a post in which he doesn't even reference the fact that this is his fault. And Elon's fanboys are having to come to grips with the fact that their favorite person is costing Americans their lives with cuts that didn't even seem to go through in these new budget. It's just unimaginable harm that has been done. And now we know for certain that Donald Trump is to blame. And that comes in this New York Times report right here. As floods hit, key roles were vacant at Weather Service offices in Texas. Some experts say staff shortages might have complicated forecasters' ability to coordinate responses with local emergency management officials. Crucial positions at the local offices of the National Weather Service were unfilled as severe rainfall inundated parts of central Texas on Friday morning, prompting some experts to question whether staffing shortages made it harder for the forecasting agency to coordinate with local emergency managers as floodwaters rose. Texas officials appeared to blame the Weather Service for issuing forecasts on Wednesday that underestimated how much rain was coming, but former Weather Service officials said the forecasts were as good as they could be expected given the enormous levels of rainfall and the storm's unusually abrupt escalation. The staffing shortages suggested a separate problem, those former officials said. The loss of experienced people who would typically have helped communicate with local authorities in hours after flash flooding warnings were issued overnight. The shortages are among the factors likely to be scrutinized as the death toll climbs from the floods. Separate questions have emerged about the preparedness of local communities, including Kerr County's apparent lack of local flood warning systems. The county, roughly 50 miles northwest of San Antonio, is where many of the deaths occurred. John Sokich, who until January was Director of Congressional Affairs for the National Weather Service, said those unfilled positions made it harder to coordinate with local officials because each Weather Service office works as a team. Reduced staffing puts that in jeopardy, he said. A spokeswoman for the National Weather Service, Erica Croce, did not answer questions from the New York Times about the Texas vacancies, including how long those positions had been open and whether those vacancies had contributed to damage caused by the flooding. So as Donald Trump oversees the greatest transfer of wealth from the bottom to the top 0.01% of Americans, he is also overseeing a National Weather Service that is completely understaffed. This reporting completely exposes the problems that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are to blame for, as they not only give our tax dollars away to billionaires and giant corporations, but spend it on making ICE essentially the 10th largest military in the world? That is what our money is being spent on. It is costing people their lives. It is breaking our country. And Robert Garcia broke down how Donald Trump is spending just exorbitant amounts of money on ICE. And I think we got to take a look right here.
I want to start there with ICE, the supercharged ICE with $170 billion coming their way. How are you thinking about, how are you preparing for what's to come with all of this money that ICE is getting?
I mean, not only was this bill obviously horrific for healthcare, for all the wealth that's being transferred, of course, to billionaires in this country, but a lot of folks don't realize that in this bill, you are supercharging this agency. Donald Trump is essentially creating a new super federal law enforcement agency through ICE. It's larger now, like you said, than the FBI. In fact, you could take all of the federal law enforcement agencies and combine them, and ICE is now going to be larger than all of those combined.
I mean, budget-wise or budget-wise?
Yeah, well, and personnel. I mean, we're
At some point, we will get more personnel, 10,000, I think, over the next 5 years.
We're going to double the size of ICE. And what's really, I think, scary about this moment is we know that most of the people that are being detained right now by ICE have no criminal record, have been convicted of absolutely nothing. It's U.S. citizens. It's protesters with doing their First Amendment rights. It's parents, it's families, it's grandparents. I just heard a story of a young man coming out of church back home in California, arrested, coming out of church, no criminal history, sent to a foreign country. These are the kinds of things that are happening. People need to understand that Donald Trump, this is not just about immigration. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump is obsessed with creating his own personal federal police force, and that's what he's doing here.
You know, the NPR, there's an NPR PBS Marist poll that came out on Tuesday on ICE enforcement of immigration laws, and you can see there on the screen, majority of the country, 54% of the country thinks that the administration is going too far, and yet he's still going at it full force, as we've been discussing. You are from California, you're a former mayor of Long Beach. Have you talk about the city just north of you, Los Angeles, where the President of the United States not only sent in ICE and the National Guard, but U.S. Marines. Do you know, are they still on the streets of Los Angeles? And if so, what are they doing?
Yeah, I mean, all of these forces that Donald Trump has sent in are still in and around L.A., and for no absolute reason. He is the one that created the sense of fear in the city of Los Angeles and more broadly. There were some protests, mostly peaceful, but at the end of the day, he wants to assert power. This is about him wanting to continue to have this authoritarian power. And we've got to push back on that. It's good to see so many people across the country, not just in polling, but on the streets, peacefully protesting what he's doing. And one other thing that's, I think, really important here is I don't think people realize how obsessed Donald Trump, and he always has been, with having his own agency at his control, because he knows that he can't control local police agencies. Most local big city police agencies have said, we're not going to actually work with you. We're not going to, our job is not federal law enforcement, which it isn't. Their job is to do traffic tickets, to respond to 911 calls. That bothers him and Stephen Miller to their core, so he's creating his own national police force.
You know, one of the things that people often think about is like Democrats hate that Donald Trump is doing this, right? That maybe some independents, but also a lot of Republicans, right, have issues and concerns with how this is shaping up. You have 6 California state Republican lawmakers in a letter that came out on June 27th urging him to focus his ICE detentions on violent criminals. Quote, "We urge you to direct ICE and DHS to focus their enforcement operations on criminal immigrants and, when possible, to avoid the kinds of sweeping raids that instill fear and disrupt the workplace." He is not listening to Democrats, obviously. Do you have any indication that at any point he will listen to Republicans who are worried about this? Because he listened for a little bit to these business folks who are like, stay away from the farms, and then they backtracked on that.
I don't. I think Stephen Miller, who's probably one of the most
Deputy White House Chief of Staff,
and
who
quite
focuses
frankly,
on this.
and quite frankly, the co-president to Donald Trump. I mean, this is the person driving all of the domestic policy agenda. He has an obsession with immigrants and those of us that came here to actually work to make this country a better place. And I think what's interesting about what you said is I don't think they care about the chaos and the harm and the terror that they're causing.
They like it. They think it scares people to self-deport.
That's right. And at the same time, I'm hearing from a lot of folks across the country that voted for Donald Trump that are saying, wait, this is not what I voted for. This is betrayal. This is actually something that goes against what I believe in.
This is a story that I don't think has gotten nearly enough coverage as Donald Trump ramps up what is maybe the most terrifying aspect of this entire administration so far, these ICE raids with his masked thugs who feel no accountability and now have a military-sized budget backing them on their attacks on communities. This is very scary. And just goes to show how little Donald Trump or any Republican cares about being fiscally conservative. They will spend your money on billionaire tax cuts and a new military, let alone, they won't even look at the bloated military budget we currently have, but they'll build another one. It's terrifying, it's sickening, and it must be called out. We're going to be doing so on this show, and if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.